Please take your seat. And so the good news is that you are in one of the most exciting sessions of this conference, of course. And exciting for two reasons. The first reason that is about artificial intelligence. And of course, the other very exciting session was yesterday, where also there was another session on artificial intelligence. And so this is a kind of segue and complements, I think, very well the session that we had yesterday on artificial intelligence. And as you know, everybody is talking about artificial intelligence. And so it will be a great opportunity for all of us to make a kind of reality check. Because sometimes there are so hyper expectations about artificial intelligence that we think that it will solve all the problems of the world, and including the problems of evaluations. Sometimes we think that it will be enough to just to click a button and then we will have the nice evaluation report done. And well, perhaps that's not exactly the case. And that's what we are going to talk in this session. And so the second reason that is going to be an exciting session is for the wonderful panel that we have here today. So first of all, let me present myself. I'm Marco Segone. I'm the director of the Independent Evaluation Office of UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, based in New York. And then we have also Sven Arten, who is the Deputy Director of the German Institute of Development Evaluation, Gonzalo Gomez, who is the Chief of Knowledge and Data Management Unit at the Independent Evaluation Office of UNDP, and Maya Vijayaraghavan, the Principal Evaluation Specialist of the Independent Evaluation Department of the Asian Development Bank. So we will start. I will have the main presentation, and then we will have the three panelists also complementing my presentation. And then, of course, we will make sure that to have at least half an hour for a Q&A, because that's where we can really exchange all our experiences. And in this session, we will learn how to navigate and uphold ethical considerations in generative AI use in evaluation. I will also present some practical use cases that we have at UNFPA. And then really also in the closing, the importance of the evaluation community in shaping responsible and ethical use of Gen AI in evaluation. And mainly my presentation is about the journey of UNFPA when it comes to artificial intelligence. So I will cover how did we begin this journey, and then what's our approach to Gen AI. So Gen AI is the generative artificial intelligence. Where are we headed? What did we learn? And then just a final questions about should we actually embrace AI or should we resist AI in our work? So first of all, how we begin? Did we begin? Well, the idea is that, AI is something nowadays is not new anymore, but just a few years back, it was something new to everybody. So we wanted to make sure that to use AI for a very clear reasons. And that's why we started with a mapping of the use cases of AI. So we started asking ourselves what's really the needs for applying AI in evaluation. So the idea is, as any innovation, the idea is not just to innovate for the sake of innovation, but the idea is really that innovation, including AI, should really address some very clear challenges that we have in evaluation and should really help our work. So we carried out a need assessment across the evaluation life cycles to see where AI could really be applied. And the result of this need assessment was that virtually, or at least theoretically, AI can be applied to any phase of the evaluation process, right beginning from the drafting of the term of reference to data collection, data analysis, report writing, quality assuring, etc. So in principle or in theory, it can be applied to any phase of the evaluation cycle. And so based on the need assessment, we also did a solution exploration study. As you know, there are so many tools, AI tools available in the market that sometimes the challenge is which one of these tools that are available in the market are the best one for our needs case. And that's what we did within the framework of our IT policies. So the names that I'm going to mention today are just some potential tools that you can use, but there are many others. In the case of UNFPA, we are based on Google, so we are mainly using Google platforms, but of course, I mean, as you know, there is Microsoft and many others that are also providing AI solutions. But the first question was, what's our approach to AI? Because we know that AI, on the one side, really can have the power to enhance the evaluation function, but on the other side also has a lot of potential risks. And that's why we came up with a Gen AI power evaluation functions strategy. So we wanted to make sure that we knew how to leverage the benefits of responsible and ethical Gen AI while minimizing the potential risks. And this strategy is available in our website, so you just have to Google for it, and you can find it. Or in the case of China, you just have to Baidu for it, and you can find it. The strategy outlines the roadmap to optimize the evaluation processes and products with ethical and responsible use of Gen AI. And clearly, it focuses on achieving greater efficiency, effectiveness, and timeliness of evaluation, because actually that's the final goals, at least for us, to use AI. We don't want to use AI to replace any human evaluators. We actually want to use AI as an assistant to us, to evaluators, so that we can become better in terms of timeliness, in terms of efficiency, in terms of effectiveness, so that we can use our time as humans to focus more on building the trust relationship with stakeholders, to focus our time on doing those things that the machine cannot do. And of course, our own strategy is aligned with the UNEC ethical principle for AI use in evaluation. UNEC is the United Nations Evaluation Group. It's the network that brings together the evaluation offices of 48 different United Nations agencies. We have a working group that is led by UNFPA, by UNDP, actually Gonzalo is one of the co-chairs, and by UNICEF. But then we have about 15 UN agencies that are members of this working group. And so we are coming up, we're still in draft, with the ethical principle for the use of AI in the framework of the United Nations system. And here, are the key principles. So do not harm, transparency and accountability, fairness and mitigation, participation and inclusiveness, privacy and data protection, accuracy and reliability, human-centered approach, and upholding human rights. I'm not going much in depth on all of this because I have only 50 minutes, but these ethical principles will be available hopefully in few months for everybody. When it comes to UNFPA in specific, in addition to the UNEC principles, we have also these other principles. As I said, our strategy is demand-driven approach. So the idea is that we are trying to use AI not just for the sake of using AI, but really to enhance our work and sometimes to address some of the challenges that we have in our evaluation function. And that's why it's so important to diversify and innovate in the Gen AI tools. As you know, outside in the global markets, there are a lot of AI tools available, that are constantly changing and improving and enhancing. And so it's very important that we are aware of it and we are constantly also updating ourselves. I will talk much more in the next few slides about this principle of upholding quality and credibility in evaluation, because that's a specific potential risk in using AI. So I will talk a little bit more about that. And of course, I will talk a little bit more about the adhering to the ethical and human rights-based approach to Gen AI use in evaluation, because that's another important potential risk that we should be aware of so that we have mitigation strategies. And as United Nations, one of our goal is not only to equip ourselves as a United Nations agency, as I say in my case, in the case of UNFPA, to equip ourselves in using AI for evaluation, but as United Nations is really on how to strengthen national capacities for governments, civil societies in different countries to use AI in their own national evaluation systems. So the strategy comes also with a roadmap on how to implement it. Phase approach, I think it's very important. I mean, very clearly, it's a learning experience for everybody. I'm not sure if there is any agency that already mastered completely the application of AI to evaluation. I think that the majority of us is in a learning journey, so this kind of phase approach, I think, is very important. Developing customized Gen AI solutions, I will talk a little bit more. I mean, as an organization, you may, or an institution, you may want to choose if you want to rely completely on external tools that are available in the market, or if you want to build your own tools within your organization. Change management and communication is also an important aspect. You know, AI by definition is an innovation. Even within our office, we have colleagues who are very open to experiments with AI, other colleagues who are resistant, who, you know, they are saying, we are evaluators, we are not IT specialists, so let's leave it for IT specialists, etc. Or, you know, we have colleagues who have been working in certain ways for decades, so they are not so open to innovations. So it's very important as an office or as an organization also to have this kind of change management strategy so that you can bring together everybody in this journey. So where are we now and where are we headed to? So we have the strategy that gives us the framework of what we want to do and how we want to do, but then, of course, that's very important then to start walk the talk, to start to experiment in practice. And we have two use cases. We pilot AI use in two very different settings. One was the use of AI for an evaluation process of UNFPA, and the second is to pilot AI for a meta-synthesis that is very different in nature, but is an interagency meta-synthesis, where, so it's not only UNFPA, but actually is 12 UN agencies that are working together. So we decided to pilot in two very different contexts so that we could learn even more. When it comes to the first one of the evaluation of UNFPA, so we just carried out the evaluation of the UNFPA strategic plan. The strategic plan is the 5 years plan that really sets the priorities for the entire organizations. And so we use AI really to do a qualitative analysis of a number of documents to determine the extent to which country programs are aligned to corporate strategic plan priorities. So here is an application of AI really for the analysis. So mainly we took what we call the country program documents of 150 different countries before the strategic plan and after the strategic plan. And we use AI to make this a kind of analysis to see if the strategic plan had any particular influence in the design of new country programs in UNFPA. So it's really about analysis to inform really an evaluation. And the second case is this United Nations interagency meta-synthesis to advance the United Nations youth strategy. So as I said, very different both in nature of the content, so it's a meta-synthesis, but it's also not only about UNFPA, but it's about 46 different United Nations agencies. So mainly here it was a little bit different, so we applied and used AI to extract reports. So, you have to think 26 different UN agencies, you have to think about 26 different databases with evaluations. So we applied AI to extract 1,348 reports from these 46 different databases with tens of thousands of evaluations. And the good news is that we got a 97% accuracy rate when it comes to the extraction of the reports. And then once the reports were identified, then we had a pilot analysis. We took only 5% of the samples, and the AI model was guided by conceptual framework and coding structures. And here it's important to say that we had 3 rounds of pilot testing, meaning that we prompt the AI system for 3 times, and humans, experts, were checking the accuracy and validity of the results produced by AI. And the good news that in this case we got also a quite high accuracy in coding and data extraction. And then we had the synthesis work. So this is still ongoing, but already the first results are very promising. It's not exactly the same for the evaluation of UNFPA. So as I said, it's a learning process. So we said, let's stop and reflect about the experience of these 2 very different exercises. And so we came up with an AI scorecard where here are the criteria to assess how AI was actually useful or not, or the extent to which AI helped us or not. And mainly it's around 4 areas. The first one is about the quality of results. So it's about accuracy and reliability. And then deeper and nuanced analysis and actionability. And here we had a kind of mixed results. When it comes to accuracy and reliability, it was rather positive. But when it comes to the deeper and nuanced analysis, it was not always the case. Then efficiency. And here it was very interesting. So we had an important time saving, but also cost benefits. Also important monetary saving in the exercise applying AI. Ethical consideration is about fairness and bias mitigation, transparency and explainability, and the human-AI collaboration and data security and privacy. So fairness and bias mitigations, it was positive mainly because we use UN reports. So we did not use reports available openly in the internet. So, the famous garbage in and garbage out. In this case, we knew what was in, and hopefully it was a good quality as it was about reports produced by the United Nations. Transparency and explainability. Here we were very methodical to include in the contract that we had with consultants and also with the companies, etc., very clear legal frameworks to ensure the transparency of the AI algorithms that were going to be used, etc. And then the user experience also was quite positive. So you don't have to read it, and I don't have time, etc., but that's just an idea of the AI scorecard that we applied for our evaluations for the different criteria. So what did we learn? Mainly two overarching lessons. The first one is that humans are accountable and not machines. So it's very important to always keep in mind that we as evaluators, we are accountable about the quality of the work that is produced, even applying AI. That's why we incorporate ethical AI use clauses into contracts. For example, one of our risk is that when we hire external consultants to carry out evaluations, those external consultants will apply their own AI system without even telling us. And so that's why in the contract with the individual consultants that we hire, we ask for these clauses to be in the contract. Second, also, when we hired an AI company to help us in coming up with all the algorithms, etc. And so we ensure transparency regarding the AI models, again, at the contractual stage. So there is a legal component that is very important to ensure the ethical use of AI. Then in our reports, we will start to include AI disclaimers in the report and explain how AI was used in the methodology of the report. So the transparency is also very important. Data protection is very much aligned with the data protection system and policies of our own organizations. And one lessons learned, really consider the time for human verification and oversight across multiple rounds of analysis. As I mentioned, we carried out a first round of prompting using AI, and then we had humans checking about the quality of the result of that prompting. Then we did a second round, and then the third round. And so that's something that you always need to keep in mind. So it's not about just clicking a button, but there is a lot of investment that you need to be aware of. And that brings me to the second overall lessons learned, that is the application of AI does not come easily, at least in our case. And actually, if I have to be frank, it was more challenging than expected. So it's really an investment. You have to be intentional in experimenting and adapting as you go. So as I mentioned, as an office, as an organization, you need to have a strategy to facilitate collective mind shift towards AI, because not everybody is so keen in using AI. Actually, we have colleagues who are actually afraid because they're saying, well, I don't want to lose my job to an AI machine. And I always reply, well, in my case, I'm pretty sure that I will not use my job to an AI machine, but I'm also equally sure that I will lose my job to a human who will be very familiar in using AI in our work. So the importance of upskilling evaluators on AI skills and build capacities of the evaluation community, or if I talk about my office, of our colleagues. Clarify the scope and definition tailored for the AI analysis is very important, really, to come up with a very clear conceptual framework so that can inform the AI algorithms. Otherwise, we always have to think we are talking about machine learning. So even the machine has to learn, and that's really quite a challenging aspect of our work to make sure that the results will be of the quality that we want. And that's why, first we tried by hiring a data scientist to enhance the prompting capabilities. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to find a data scientist who was also very familiar with evaluation, and that's why we went out to hire a company. But in principle, if you hire a company, once the contract is expired for that specific task, then you are losing all the knowledge. So that's why, if possible, we think that it's better to have an internal data scientist that can help on this. Keep track of the efficiency gains, and that's why we came up with this AI scorecard. It's very important that we we are critical in our experimentation with AI. As I said, AI can come with a lot of challenges and a lot of risks, so we have to be very critical to make sure that we have a mitigation risk. And last but not least, but also be clear on the initial investment. As I said, initially you have to invest financially, but also with human capacities and time, especially in the beginning. So the last question, should we embrace or resist Gen AI? And from my side, I think that we should neither embrace nor resist, but we should actually shape AI. AI is probably going to happen, even if we like it or not, and that's why it's very important that we should really try to shape it. And to shape it so that human rights, transparency, and accountability lies the way. And keep it in mind that Gen AI should really benefit everybody, including the 1/3 of humanity who is still offline. Because, of course, we don't want to increase the disparities that goes even beyond the digital disparities and the digital divide. And that's why I think that as an innovation community, we must take deliberate steps to leverage ethical and responsible Gen AI in evaluation. So it's really a call as an evaluation community to come together for ethical and responsible Gen AI for evaluation. So with this, thanks a lot for your attention. In the code there, in the QR code, you can download the strategy that I was just mentioned before. And I really look forward to the initial discussion with the panelists first, and then with all of you. So thanks a lot for your attention. And with this, Sven, over to you to share your experience and thoughts. Thanks.
You want me to stay here or come up?
As you like.
I need the pointer, though.
Here?
Oh, yes. Well, thanks, Marco. Above all, really a big thanks to you for saying that using an AI is an investment. It does not come easily. It's a quote, and I must say that's a great relief hearing this from you, because I felt like, oh boy, I'm going to come up to this stage here, coming from Germany, coming from a bilateral donor, and I'm going to spoil the party, because you guys you're going to be so agile, so nimble, playing with AI, and I'm going to talk about our journey, which has been hard, and it is still hard. And I hope that we'll reach to a point that we can ethically use AI in our evaluations. But still, we are at the piloting stage, and there are a couple of important steps that we need to take. And to be honest, sometimes I felt like, how on earth was Germany once a country where they invented stuff? Because the reality right now is you can't innovate. I mean, it's so hard. But I'm sure, and that's the positive point, by the time that we will use AI as an institution, we will actually use it in a safe and ethical way. Not sure whether this will be 2030 or 2026 or 2045 at some point. Anyway, so that's as an introduction, and then also just as a disclaimer. So I'm going to kill you with slides, but I'm not going to talk to all of those slides, because this is from an hour-long session I had on AI on a different occasion. But those slides will be online, and some things are in there quite valuable for you if you're piloting, if you're playing with AI. So I decided to have them all in. So for us, again, DEWAL is Germany's official institute for development evaluation. So we have the mandate to evaluate Germany's ODA, which has been decreasing now, but in the past years, you're looking at 11-12 billion per year, several thousands of projects. Well, the 11 billion is excluding market financing that KfW, for instance, is leveraging. So a huge portfolio, many countries, and for us as an official state institution, obviously, there are a couple of challenges starting with this. So being relatively rigorous and thorough, as we Germans sometimes are, we said, okay, similar to Marco, okay, let's do a needs assessment. Let's understand the potentials and the risks involved. So we have an internal paper on that. Then we went into piloting a couple of cases. And now we're drafting guidelines, and now we're coming into an important step, which I'll talk later on. So we have a workers' council or employee councils, right? A union of employees, because we have 120 employees, so they are represented by a union, and they're really strong. And so in terms of using new technologies, they're saying, well, we need to have an institutional agreement between sort of the CEO and COO and the representative of the company, of the institution, and the workers' union, how we will implement AI and what kind of training the employees can expect. So we are at that guideline stage, the contract there. And then hopefully we'll get into institution-wide deployment. But we didn't really start with AI right from the beginning. We have actually a journey where we looked at, okay, what kind of work are I actually doing? We have complex evaluations, we have different types of data. And a couple of years back, we actually started, so that was 2016, with text mining, text classification, manual coding. So we have this journey starting 2016, roughly, with manual coding, classical machine learning, and now going into large language models and Gen AI. I'm gonna skip those cases, but one of them was basically using text mining. Oops, then the microphone is gone. To understand, okay, where is actually German development cooperation happening? Because nobody knows. The Germans don't know. Nobody really knows. So maybe some of you know, but at least we don't, and our ministry they don't. And so we used evaluation reports from KfW, GIZ, talking about 10,000 reports, manual coding, and then machine learning to identify. I think there the example is Tacloban City in the Philippines, to understand where projects were happening. Quite a cumbersome process, but at least for some of our reports, we understood where this was happening. Then, similar to what Marco was saying, we with our scoping paper, we looked at, okay, where can we actually use AI, and you'll see this, and you'll all know that. So all along the evaluation cycle, there are opportunities. But here comes one interesting example I wanted to share with you is, again, if you look at Germany's development cooperation over the past 3 years, for example, you're looking at least 30,000 projects. And all those projects have multiple documents. So multiply this at least by 3. Maybe if some projects are already closed, you could multiply it by 5, but on average multiply it by 3, then you get to somewhere around 100,000 documents. And similar to what we heard this morning with food security and nutrition, this evaluation was on circular economy. And circular economy, you don't have any code. It's not coded, so we don't know what circular economy projects there are in Germany's development cooperation. And that's for many types of interventions you have that. So there the challenge was, okay, how can we find out what actually our evaluant is, right? Our object of the evaluation. So we used document classification with the large language model to understand from the short descriptions which are in the OECD database this is the process, again, process, to understand which are the documents. And here comes an important step, which is about quality assurance. And actually, now with we're using mainly OpenAI, actually, so GPT-4. And there you can do text embeddings and map them and understand how OpenAI, how GPT-4 has actually come up with the classification. And basically what you're seeing here, so if you would imagine a cat and a dog, they would have a similar color, and you would imagine that they would be somewhere in a similar corner. So if they find animals, domestic animals, they would probably be all green, cats and dogs being not too dissimilar, you would find them here. So this is also for types of circular economy projects for the text strings that they got. And what we then did after mapping all this, what evaluators tend to do, we took a random selection of those text embeddings, and we checked. Again, you can ask me later about the details, but this is one way for quality assurance that is relatively new with GPT-4, where you can understand how it is all mapped and where you can actually go and quality assure. Next one is, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I think a lot in terms of quality of AI, as you all know, has to do with good prompting. So there's some guidance here, but what is one of the coolest things about this is actually you have this chain of thought prompting, where you can ask ChatGPT, okay, tell me whether this project description is likely to be circular economy, but also tell me why you think so, and tell me if you are certain or not so certain about your own classification, and give me reasons for that. And that's really, really helpful, because actually we found that the self-assessment of GPT-4 was quite good. Obviously, we did quality checks on that. So what are, and this one you'll also see in the slides if you want. This is an interesting example of a step-by-step prompting, where you tell GPT-4, okay, if A is such, then continue to step B. So again, if you go through the slides, you'll see how this works. But I think in terms of prompting, this is just the beginning. We can get a lot better with that. But then going back to the topic of today, so quality assurance is one, right? But for us also, what we're doing now, we're having an internal document similar to what Marco was referring to at the UNEC level, where we basically mapping AI to evaluation standards. So we've got our own standards, which are linked to the OECD standards for good evaluations, and basically, for internal purposes, or maybe publish it later, we're saying, okay, for instance, in utility and participation, where do we see potentials, where do we see risks? So this is a document forthcoming. Time seems to be up, but I'm almost done. Oops, sorry. And then this is the internal guideline we're working on together with our employees council, basically as part of a change management strategy, having this binding document that gives orientation to our staff, where we say, okay, if we use AI, what data are we gonna use, and what are the rules for data protection? Then sort of points about transparency, replicability, bias, and we are also making a strategy on what kind of training they will need, upscaling the trainings, you know, for prompting and so on. So, in terms of conclusions, pretty similar to what Marco has been saying. You know, for us, we can't escape AI. We can't resist it. We are embracing it, but it's going to be a long process. And there are a couple of important institutional policies that we need to put in place while we're still piloting with that. And happy prompting.
Well, thanks a lot, Sven, for sharing the very interesting experience from Deval. I think it becomes very clear that really the need to have also guidelines and policies so that we can really mitigate the potential risk while harnessing the potential benefits. And it was also very interesting to see some concrete application of AI. So now with Gonzalo, UNDP, if I understand well, took the decision to actually develop its own internal AI platform. And that's what Gonzalo is going to present and talk about in the next 10 minutes. So, Gonzalo, thanks.
Thank you. Hello. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, as Marco was saying, and thank you, Marco, for setting the panel and the principles specifically for the ethical part, because that was a challenge when we were thinking about AIDA. In UNDP, we created something that is, we developed the AIDA, that stands for Artificial Intelligence for Development Analytics. And we started before the hype of the large language models. We started in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, right? When everybody was talking about, okay, how can we deal with a problem that is taking big proportions, and how we did in the past. So how can we learn of others like SARS-1, like Ebola? So where can we find the evidence? And we went to our system. We have a system in the Independent Evaluation Office of UNDP that is called ERC. It stands for Evaluation Resource Center. Basically, it's a database where you store every single evaluation. We started storing our evaluations in 1997. We have close to 6,500 evaluations today. So the idea was, okay, how can we get the information here? And we had the first problem, right? You have PDFs. It's similar to what Eva was describing yesterday, Maya was describing Eva yesterday. It's like, okay, how can we do it? But at that time, it was so difficult to extract the information, and we were knocking different doors of all the big players in the IT arena, namely Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and other smallers like Databricks. And the only company that said, okay, we can do something with you, more or less what you want, was Amazon. And we started a work with Amazon Web Services together with the United Nations International Computing Center. That is a specific agency for dealing with IT projects for the UN. So what we did is, okay, we have this. How can we search inside the reports, inside our evaluation reports, and basically extract information that we want? This is the simplified pipeline of AIDA. Basically, we did the data acquisition from our own reports, but we wanted to extract only parts of the reports. Basically, findings, conclusions, and recommendations, right? It's different than Eva that you are extracting the lessons. We wanted to extract findings, conclusions, and recommendations for every single evaluation report. The challenge was that some of the evaluations are conducted by consultants. And not every single report had the same structure. We had multiple columns, technical issues that we had to overcome, right? We did the text extraction, and we started to use machine learning, but it's supervised machine learning, with what we call the human in the loop. Basically is what Marco described and Sven as well. You need human interaction to validate what you are doing. So in the comprehension, we have an AI-powered engine to assign labels to the information we were extracting. But we wanted to know, okay, if you extract the information, it's like the systems at that moment were extracting sentences or the full page. But we wanted to have something more, a unit that a user can understand better, so we extracted paragraphs. The paragraph can give you a good idea of the information you are reading in the system. So we store that in the search engine and by category, right? Finding, conclusion, and recommendation stored separately, and we assign the labels. And the labels were thematic and non-thematic. Thematic for the areas of UNDP where we work in terms of climate change, governance, poverty, and so on. So we created a taxonomy for that. And non-thematic, meaning project management, financial management, and other aspects of the projects that we were evaluating. So what can AIDA do for me? That was the big question, right? Now, it can support project and program formulation because you can go and look for the insights that the system can generate for you in terms of what worked, what didn't work, and I will explain how. It can provide insights for synthesis work, and actually we started the whole journey of AIDA producing a series of papers called reflections. And the reflections are only a rapid synthesis where you go to the existing evidence and you learn about the past, what happened. And it can give you now inputs for gap map analysis because now we can know where you have evidence and where you don't have evidence. And we just prepared a gap map analysis using AIDA as the source for the strategic plan evaluation of UNDP. So I wanted to do a demo, but it was going to take a little bit longer, but I captured the screens here. So this is AIDA. You can all of you can access. It doesn't have filters. I tried from here, so you can access aida.undp.org. The link is there. So what we have is we built 4 different types of search. Basically, one type of search is by keyword, by SDGs, because we wanted to search by SDGs, by location, and by topics. And the topics are part of the taxonomy. So it will give you the list of paragraphs, and you will have something here, the different colors, that is the sentiment analysis on the text of the evaluation, specifically on that paragraph. And then it generates insights, and the insights will come with different color as well, red for negative, green for positive. But the idea was what worked and what didn't work, right? But we had a very interesting challenge there. Okay, this is the taxonomy very quickly. You don't need to look into it. 216 child levels in total. Linked to the SDGs because we wanted to map everything to the SDGs so we can see where we are contributing in terms of SDGs. And this is the whole architecture. But before going to the architecture, let me take you to the sentiment analysis, and then I will go back to the other part. So the sentiment analysis was a very challenging thing. And I don't know how many of you know about this part of technology that is used by social media. The sentiment analysis means that whenever you see a tweet, for example, in Twitter, and people like it, and this is great, so sentiment analysis is positive. You say, I hate this, it's negative. But it's very straightforward. What is the challenge with the UN, and especially with our evaluation reports? Our language is very neutral. We don't say, this is not working, or this is great. We say, you know, the program had very positive findings, and you were implementing things very well. Nevertheless, there is opportunity for fixing these kind of things, right? But actually, you are saying it's not working. But the machine cannot understand that. At least every single sentiment model that we tried were giving us 90% of the text neutral. So we said, okay, how can we fix this? So we worked with 2 universities, with Essex University from the UK and Zeppelin University from Germany, to improve and tailor a sentiment analysis model to the UN language. So we came with a 5-scale sentiment analysis, having fully positive, mixed positive, neutral, mixed negative, negative. So the whole architecture is like you see here, but we had another challenge in terms of the inclusion of reports. And that was the different languages. So we extract the documents, we apply everything, the sentiment, and I will show you later the insight generation. But we had one challenge, is we cannot exclude evaluations in other languages than English. So we included here, in this part, a translation module. So we translate every single non-English report to English. But you will have the interface and everything is in English. But if you want to go to the source document, you go to the source document. We have French, Portuguese, Arabic, and other languages. So the last part is we did something that is called the topic clustering or topic modeling. We wanted the machine to give you insights based on your query. So what we do is we extract the paragraphs from what you are searching. You select the topics based on the topics that the machine is giving you, and we generate a summary for you with the links to the original documents and to the paragraphs used to do the summary that you are getting. So the generative AI is being used just at the end of the whole process. And we apply the principles. And we wanted to exclude low-quality evaluations, and we decided not to do it. We include every evaluation. So what we added is a filter where you can select to exclude those evaluations when you are doing your search. And in terms of privacy and data protection is public information. Only UNDP evaluations are publicly available, so we are not dealing with any beyond our domain. In terms of accuracy and reliability, again, we have human in the loop at every step of the different models. We have more than 6 AI models behind this. And we share this as a public good in terms of do no harm, is you can tailor your search, and the evidence is there. And we give you the original and the source document as well. Thank you so much. I think I took 11 minutes. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Gonzalo. Yeah, definitely very interesting experience. Maybe I will just have a few remarking comments towards the end of the session, just to try to bring together the session on similarities, but also differences in the 3 experiences that we just heard. And now we have Maya. I hope that you had the opportunity to attend the session yesterday where she presented EVA, that is the tool that is used by the Asian Development Bank. So Maya is not going to represent again the same tool because for sure you already went to the session yesterday. So Maya is going just to give some kind of overall comments on what we heard so far, and from your perspective, what are the key insights that you would like to share with us. So Maya, over to you.
Marco said, I won't be repeating what I already presented yesterday, but I think it's been interesting listening to both Sven's and Gonzalo's experience. I think the experience with EVA is much more similar to AIDA. Of course, it also has some elements of some of the issues that Sven flagged. And also going back to Marco's presentation, we certainly did start with mapping use cases. So that, I'd say, was a similarity. And I think the big similarity with AIDA is the issue of just extracting information from documents that have been published. So we haven't yet started on the journey of using AI in our evaluative work, but I see a lot of potential. I see perhaps the use of generative AI tools as a thought partner for our evaluators. And based on what Sven presented, I think it could also be quite useful in selection of approaches, which I think is something that they used it for. Maybe generating evaluation questions. We haven't tried that yet, but that's a possibility. Literature reviews, I think, which has been tried by Sven, and I think that's an area that we could certainly look into. And I think most importantly, both AIDA and EVA really democratize access to knowledge from evaluations, saving time, saving costs. I think that's something that we've clearly seen. In terms of biases or the risks of bias, at least for EVA, because a universe of inputs is really confined to institutionally produced documents, which is really just the evaluations produced across ADB. So any bias that's inherent in it is really the institutional biases that are inherent in the documents themselves, and we're not really introducing any additional sources of bias. When we start expanding the use of generative AI, especially in our evaluation work, I think we need to be more conscious of those other sources of bias, especially if you're using external sources of data inputs in our work. So that's that. I really like the metrics that Marco presented. I think that's something that we should probably consider seriously, especially when we start using generative AI in our work. Sven, I really liked what you said about pragmatism. Thinking of the tool as an additional team member, that's something I emphasized yesterday as well. And we actually have 3 or 4 different team members because using a suite of language models in the overall ADB architecture. And lastly, I think governance is really important. And unlike, I'd say, UNFPA and IEO, we don't really have an evaluation-specific governance framework yet at ADB, but there is an AI governance working group that's institution-wide, so we should, at some point, perhaps by the end of the year, early next year, have an ADB-wide AI governance framework. And that's probably going to guide how we use and how we caveat the use of AI in general across the institution. So that's it from me. As I said, I don't want to repeat what I said yesterday, but you're welcome to go back and review the session details when they're posted on the website. And that should give you a good sense of the similarities and differences, some of which I highlighted right now. Thanks, Marco.
Thanks a lot, Maya. So I'm really glad that we actually have half an hour for a kind of interactive dialogue. And as I said, it's not Q&A, it's actually interactive dialogue because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I think we are all learning in the process. And so, yes, feel free to either pose questions, but also share your experience, share your thoughts, but also maybe, your anxieties with AI, if any. So that we can really use the next half an hour for having really a meaningful discussion. So if you want to talk, just go to the mic. Just go, because I already see a lot of hands. Just go to the mic and make a small line. And please introduce yourself briefly, and then just say whatever you want to say. So please.
Can I? Hi, everyone. I am Radha Ashrit. I am from India. I work in the Monitoring and Evaluation Group of Government of India. Wonderful panel. It was really enriching to know that so many emerging technologies can be, potentially we can use in the evaluation space. I'm coming from a country, so we are all more enthusiastic, at the same time anxious, to implement the different tools or techniques which you are mentioned in our own system. So I would like to get some kind of clarification from all of you that so many products you have shown to us, EVA, IDA, and UNFPA. So as a country person, I would like to know that which product or which tool would be better suited to our own uh, evaluation purposes, number one. Number two, what are the merits and demerits of each of the products, so that that will help us to understand and take a conscious and informed decision if at all we would like to contextualize to in our own system. Because EVA, currently it is only taking care of the ADB documents. UNFPA, that product may take care of only the UN agency products. So as a country, we do have our own list of evaluation studies, maybe in different languages, maybe in different format. So all those things, how we can utilize, we don't need to reinvent the wheel again and again. So I would request that what are the merits and demerits of each of the products, that will be very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So just go to the mic and take the floor.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Garaban, and I'm from the European Investment Bank. Thank you very much for the excellent panel. It was very, very informative. My question is about the human resources aspect. My institution is also in the same path. One issue that we are struggling with is to find the right people on the market to help us. We have been out on the market to find data scientists, and so far with very limited success. Mark already mentioned that they also try to hire a data scientist with some evaluation experience, which is very difficult to find. We are struggling with the same thing. Also, competing with the private sector in terms of salaries and packages is very difficult. Finding the right kind of skill set. Many of the data scientists who work in the private sector have been working on very different problems, focusing most on forecasting rather than causal type of issues. So in general, I would like to ask you to share your experience on how to handle these issues and how can you create the capacities that you need for this kind of projects. Thank you.
And take another couple of questions. Yeah, please go to the mic.
Sorry, and my question will be real quick. So this is Chon, and I'm from.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. My name is Chon, and I'm from the UNDP China country office. So it's good to have UNDP colleagues from IEO to introducing the AI tools, which I have heard quite frequently. So I'm very curious in terms of the data source and how AIDA adjusts the country context in terms of generating knowledge. Because although the 6,000 evaluation report that AIDA analysis actually have like 20 or 30 is gone through our teams, and we know like the evaluation report will be very specifically focused on China context. But when we are generating, or if AIDA's basic calculating or searching engine is only focusing on findings and recommendations, they may lack of that country context to giving recommendation to others. And also I'm very curious in terms of like, for example, if I'm trying to have a project in rural revitalizations, and how AIDA is going to help me to get that knowledge from other countries, because that is also very similar to knowledge exchange, leveraging our global expertise, but sometimes context also do matter, and also related to the quality of evaluations as well. So very interested in this. Thank you.
See, there are many hands, but the good news is we still have 20 minutes, so perhaps we can just do a first round of not really answer, but sharing of perspective from the panel, and then we go back to the floor. I'm in the very difficult position of being both panelists and chair, so I'm not going to start. Maybe if any of you want to start, and then I can complement whatever I have to complement.
Start. I'm not sure I'll have full answers to all the questions. I think the first question was from Niti Aayog in India on the pros and cons of each tool. And I suppose it can be confusing when you have all these different sources and ways of extracting information. So at this point, I think all the various institutions are really experimenting with the use of AI. And the one that we've developed at ADB is very specific. It's really just identifying and extracting lessons from all of the evaluation documents. So that's the limitation. All you're going to get is lessons. and how you use it and what you want to do with it. We have, as I said, 3 separate use cases that we've considered in developing it. And if there are different users that are looking for something different, you will not get that from that tool. So that's the limitation. I think at some point we hope to link at least all the multilateral development banks, I guess evaluation documents, make it available centrally, but I think that's still, quite a few years away. So that's on the first question. EIB, I feel your pain. I have to say at ADB, we've been very fortunate. We have an IT department that has an AI lab. So they actually, without them, I don't think we could have developed this tool. So obviously, they need subject matter expertise from the evaluator, but having them in-house and working with them closely has made the journey a lot easier. I think it would have been much more difficult if we had to go out in the open market. As you said, I think most of the data scientists who work in the private sector are really focused on forecasting. That's absolutely right. So I think we're fortunate. We didn't have the same problem that I think a number of you will probably face. That's it.
Okay, maybe I can just quickly add. So for all of you who are thinking about which tools, I hear you, and it's quite confusing. I guess the best investment I would say would be to see whether you can hire an IT specialist just for a scoping study. So somebody who understands your IT system, who understands the data sources you have, and who can then give you hopefully neutral recommendations on what tool to use. So we use openly available tools. I mentioned one. This is because we are on the Microsoft IT infrastructure for no other reason. So I'm not going to give some more ads or credibility to OpenAI than they already got. You can use BART, you can use Mirai, you can use many other tools depending on your IT infrastructures. And then also a big question is, at least for us, has been whatever tools we use, we need to have them, when we go for the rollout, we need to have servers in country. So maybe European servers would work, but actually ideally the servers would be in Germany. And no offense to our American colleagues here, but servers in the US for Germany's data protection laws are no-go. So this is another, I don't know your regulations, but the location of the server also then depends what you can use. And being India, I would guess maybe you can just have your own tool developed. Last point on HR, I hear you. I mean, in the salary food chain, we're very close to the bottom. Like we're probably as government employees, we are not very high up. I mean, if EIB would hire somebody, our people would go to you first. So we're not even trying to go to the market because for us it's completely unrealistic. So what we did, and that works really well. We had an internal call, and we had we have now three internal junior evaluators who are tech savvy and who over the past, one started already 4 years ago, but over the past 2 years the others came on board, and they really are working themselves into that. And I must say, some of the stuff I presented, for instance, the quality assurance, this is something this guy found out, and he tested it and he did it. So I think investing in your own stuff, finding young, interested people is some solution as well.
Okay. So the first question, I would say, here's the opportunity for collaboration. And here is where I firmly believe that we need to collaborate in this area. And for example, in AIDA, initially it was only a product focused on UNDP, and we did a major change to the architecture to support multiple institutions. And we are still working with the UNICC, the United Nations International Computing Center, and Amazon, so they can give us a costing structure, because it has a cost on the initial ingestion of reports and then the use of the platform. I think if we don't collaborate here, we will spend a lot of money from different angles. And what we were doing from UNDP's point of view, we were sharing the experience and the road that we traveled and the different experiences that you have on dealing, for example, the sentiment analysis alone. We shared how we did it with several agencies. And we are not charging, because at the end of the day, our public resources that come through UNDP. And I think here is where we can find the avenues to use eval, to use AIDA, or other, like the strategy that UNFPA openly shared on how to use responsible AI. I think if we don't collaborate, it will not be successful in terms of implementing things. In terms of the second, the human resources, yes, we were dealing with it. And perhaps the approach in UNDP was a little bit different. We didn't hire any data scientist. We have one IT person that has been there for quite some time, that is one of the brains behind AIDA. I have IT background, but I was in charge of the knowledge and data management unit, but not as data scientist, okay, because it's a different profession. So what we did is we asked Amazon, that was our provider, to assign data scientists to the work. So basically, the IT person was translating the evaluation knowledge and the evaluation needs to the data scientists. And we were working together as a team with them. Amazon assigned like 5 data scientists in total, and different levels and expertise. Because it's very difficult to compete with a company like Microsoft or OpenAI. They have a lot of resources to hire these high-quality people, but then you can find also a way of partnering with them, right? And I think it worked for us. And a second part of that is I have a team of research analysts that we support every single evaluation in the IO. But we started to change the profile and the background that we are hiring. Instead of having only research experience, we are recruiting research experience with data or with coding. So that is an addition that you can do, right? Because then they know about data analysis. They are not data scientists per se, but they have the knowledge of the emerging technologies. That is something that you need. And can I respond to the third question on AIDA very quickly? The data source is UNDP's evaluations only, okay? The publicly available evaluations in our website. So you will not find any other thing. The reason we only took findings, conclusions, and recommendations, and we took out the country context, is because the country context changes. If you take an evaluation from 1997 and you compare it with today, it will not tell you much, right? And the annexes also. But yes, we're open to work with you on that, and if you want, we can bilaterally at the end of the session, we can check a little bit more. In terms of how we help formulating projects, and you can learn from other regions, in the search interface, you have a lot of filters now that can filter or eliminate low-quality evaluations, only include high-quality evaluations. Right? You can set the number of years that you want to search. You can select the countries that you want to search. So it's quite robust now in terms of focusing your search. And then you select the topic, and it will give you insights. And you can go and you can contact the office basically on how they did it, right? And you can filter project evaluations and separate from country program evaluations or thematic evaluations. So you have a lot of options for filtering your search. Thank you.
From my side, very quickly, just to complement, you know, which tools are the best for your own local context? I think for us, it was very important to do this product solution analysis. I mean, the reality is that out there in the market, there are so many tools, and they are evolving constantly. So if you do the analysis today, tomorrow will be already not updated anymore. But that's, anyway, I think it would be the first step, because probably there is not one tool that is good for everybody. It really has to be nuanced to your local context and needs. And the good news I would imagine is that in India, as you know, is a global IT hub. So likely in Bangalore, etc., maybe there will be also some IT companies that can help on this. But of course, also the aspect of partnership that were already mentioned, I think is really key. On the human resources, I mean, as already mentioned during the presentation, is really quite a challenge. I mean, even for the private sectors, I mean, there is a lot of competitions, etc. And of course, I mean, they can pay many more times than what we can afford. That's why we went for the plan B, and we hire a company, but just to help us for really very specific tasks, for very specific, for the piloting, for example. But the downside is that, if it's somebody that you hire externally, the knowledge, you will lose the knowledge as soon as the contract expires. So that's really the downside. And that's why we are collaborating very much with our own IT department to help us really to identify the right human resources. But they also are struggling. So I think there is not an easy solution on that. Okay, we still have 10 minutes, so I think for a couple of questions. So please just go to the mic and try to be concise with a question or comments, so that we can get 2 or 3. Thanks.
Great, thanks. A great panel. Marie Gardner from 3IE. Couple of things. First, a remark. I think in 3IE we as well are piloting, as you all are, in this use, especially in the area of systematic reviews and also the impact evaluations. And also we're looking at using a chatbot, for example, on extracting information from the development evidence portal, for example. And one thing on that, and there's a question, I think, for the whole panel. One thing that we've seen is that when we apply it in, let's say, to extract coefficients from impact evaluations, it works really badly. What it works well for is to sort of create a summary of a program, for example. And one of the things the reason why this is that a lot of impact evaluation reports are really badly written. And very inconsistently the way the results are presented, etc. And so one thing that struck me from all of you is you're talking about how can we sort of adapt the tools. And I'm also wondering, let's make this iterative. How can we become better in our field to write better reports? And wondering whether you're also thinking about some guidelines for the future where you actually get, better material to work with. And so it's sort of an iterative collaboration rather than sort of just improving the tool to understand us. And then one comment is, we're also using it outside of the evaluations. For example, how do you train staff to have better conversations with funders? And so you can have this partner who can help train you and can extract information about a funder like yourselves, for example, and give the information so that you can tailor-make conversations. Again, it's sort of a training tool. And I'm just wondering whether as well in your collaborations within your organizations, when you want to push the use of evaluations, whether you can think about that kind of uses as well to train your staff to be better interlocutors with, within the organizations. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sohini from Clear South Asia and JPAL South Asia. So a very quick question to you, Marco. I think you mentioned about building national capacity when it comes to generative AI. So I'm just curious to understand if for developing countries in particular, whether there are some minimum requirements that you would want the governments to think about when it comes to data governance, architecture overall? I know you mentioned about data protection, but what about data quality overall? And maybe so that we don't get caught up in the idea of just understanding generative AI, but also thinking of how that means in terms of the data that we are bringing in. Thanks.
Yes, good morning and afternoon. Paul from the National Economic Development Authority in the Philippines. Well, 3 points or questions. First is, well, earlier this week, Tim Harford sort of cautioned on maybe on over-reliance on AI and maybe it would somehow, in some cases, result in sort of a de-skilling. So we do see that happening in the future when sort of AI becomes sort of a norm when we use it for the conduct of evaluations. Number 2, in terms of availability for government partners, because the same use cases, that the DPs use AI for is also applicable now, so to the governments, the different governments. So I'm not sure on some tools, not explicitly mentioned if it would be shared also to the general public or to the government. So maybe some of you could also comment. For example, for Germany, whether it would be like open to the public, and so on. And maybe number 3 is, I think there's a consensus that there's a need collaboration across different agencies or development partners. Where do we see that sort of venue to have that sort of collaboration? Maybe if we recognize really this as a sort of a public good, to sort of really establish or to foster global knowledge creation. Because, well, for now, we see it as slices of knowledges from different organizations. So what would be the best venue to have that sort of discussion? And is there a consensus that there should be sort of internationally agreed principles on ethical use of AI for evaluations, maybe? So where do we see that venue happening? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great question and comments. So now, unfortunately, we have only 4 minutes to go. So perhaps I'm asking the panelists just to take 1 or maximum 2 minutes each, either to address any of the questions or to give just the closing or the key takeaway message from your side.
Start. So Murray, I think that's a really great observation in terms of reading reports using AI. I think the real issue is the lack of consistent formats. So I think, some sort of standard that could be set, especially for, as you said, impact evaluations and the way that results are presented in tables, that would really go a long way. But I don't know how we'd come up with that and how we'd enforce that uniformly. But I think as AI use becomes more widespread, I'm sure there'll be a move towards standardizing the way the data is presented, because it just makes it much easier to sort of harvest that knowledge that's available. Just a very quick question on, where was the other question? Oh yeah, that I think good idea on, sort of using the information that you have to train staff. So I think what we need to do as evaluators within our organization is sort of get our counterparts to use our evidence. So I think that's probably a good use for us to think of that.
Okay, I agree that extracting quantitative results is tough. We tried but failed. But what we actually did do, which also links to your question about communication of results, actually you can use AI to explain coefficients to non-quant persons. So having those, having regression tables and then using AI to explain what you see there, we actually found that the explanations were really, really good. So we tested it with people in ministries and so on. So that helped. And then the other one, yes, we are actually doing it, not necessarily to train evaluators to become better communicators, but for instance, when I had a meeting with party officials, because our reports go to Parliament, for published reports, I asked for party-specific summaries, and that was really great. Now, and it was neutral in the sense that it pointed to pain points where the party was like very opposed, but it also pointed to matches. So you prompted in a way to get sort of both sides, and then perhaps on the de-skilling of workers. I'm not so sure. I think it will expand our skill set. So certain skills we will probably less use. So summarizing big reports will probably be a skill as an evaluator that we will use less. But then we will complement it with other skills. So I don't really think we will end up being stupid afterwards. More in the sense that Marco was saying, it's really a great tool to free up your resources, your time to do the evaluative thinking, to do the stuff most of us were actually hired for, right? And then in terms of the international data architecture and so on a European level, I'm a bit worried because you have the European Data Protection Act, and now there's the EU AI Act, and as a consequence, quite likely, relatively soon, all companies will somehow hire not only a data privacy specialist, but also an AI specialist. Sometimes it will be the same person, but the data protection people will get sort of additional functions. So to some extent for the larger companies, this will be helpful, but for all of you who've been experiencing the consequences, when you go to European websites where you have to click all those acceptance buttons now, much more than the cookies. So the data protection international architecture, which is emerging in Europe, is quite a heavy bureaucratic burden. But to some extent, hopefully, we can shape it in a direction that it really supports the ethical use of AI. So in that sense, perhaps it's not such a bad development after all.
Very quickly on the report format. As a consequence of implementing AIDA, we changed our report format. We had to, right? And now we are moving towards a new format with the storytelling and things like that, but we are considering having the professionally designed reports that go out and another version that is specifically to feed our systems. And extracting, it was challenging, but I think there are powerful tools now that can help you on extracting the coefficients. In terms of what Sven was saying, yes, in terms of the data protection and the different acts that we have now, yeah, it's becoming much of a problem in terms of the availability of tools for many things. And but the UN, as you know, has the Secretary General commissioned a task force on AI, on how we can have access to AI in responsible way. And I think that is how governments will have access to AI tools under this umbrella. That is a broader thing. And you have the other question.
Thanks a lot. Actually, I think that we have the big challenge of really wrap up the session in about 1 minute. So really the key takeaway messages from my side will be the following. First is that it's pretty clear that there are very huge potential benefits in applying AI to evaluation. Second is that to do that, we must be intentional. So we must come up really with a very clear conceptual framework of strategy that can really help us so that we are not going to be naive on all of this. And today, I think you got really 3 very interesting, different approaches to AI. So the one side, you have a DevAl that is using open AI systems. So of course, very not expensive, let's say, from the organization perspective, but of course it comes with some risk when it comes to bias, et cetera, et cetera. On the other side of the spectrum, you have the UNDP AIDA, that is an internal platform. So you mitigate the potential risk of biases, et cetera, because you control the system, both the system as well as the inputs that you have in the system. But I guess it comes with some financial implications. And then in the middle, you have the UNFPA experience, where we decided to go out to the open, not to open, to the market. So we did not build an internal system because we don't have the financial capacity to do that. But also we wanted to mitigate somehow the potential risk of biases, etc. And that's why we went to the external market. So you have three different approaches. I think that both of them have advantages and disadvantages. It's really up to you to decide what could be the best in your own context. But I think there is one thing that is common to all the three different approaches, and this the aspect of making sure that we have an ethical and responsible approach to AI. I think this really is the common underline for everybody. And let me close perhaps with a question about national capacities for AI, etc., because it's very close to my heart. I think that we as evaluation community, we really have a responsibility in making sure that nobody is left behind in applying AI in evaluation. And that's why I'm really trying as much as possible whenever I go to conferences, etc., to propose a session on AI, because I think that's the first step to raise awareness of both the potential benefits and potential risks. And really, thanks a lot to the organizers of this conference to make that possible. When it comes to standards, Gonzalo already mentioned I would say the general standards of AI developed by the United Nations. When it comes to more specific standards of AI, two evaluations from the UN side, as I mentioned, there is this UNEG standards on AI that are being finalized. So hopefully that will be also a contribution, and hopefully any other stakeholders being UN agencies, but also government, etc., may find them useful. But I think that the key message is really the importance of coming together really to shape AI so that it can be an AI that can help us to come up with a more efficient and effective and timely evaluations without replicating the biases that are already existing in the real world. So with this, please join me in a round of applause for the great panelists and also the great audience. And thank you very much.